Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. We're looking at a recent, highly detailed panel where military whistleblowers and experts laid out some pretty intense allegations about government secrecy and advanced extraterrestrial phenomena. We're going to break down the claims from this press conference step by step. We'll look at what these military operators are reporting they experienced firsthand, the mind-bending technology they claim is out there, and the absolutely massive global implications they believe are at stake. Whether you've been following this topic for years or you're just curious about what's being said behind closed doors right now, we are going to lay out their exact arguments. So let's get into it.
Here's our agenda for today. First, tangible encounters. Second, identifying crafts. Third, the covert threat. Fourth, the consciousness connection. And finally, number 5, political action.
Starting right off with Section 1, tangible encounters.
According to the speakers on the panel, military personnel were subjected to some completely unexplained medical procedures right after their encounters. This really highlights the deeply personal physical stakes involved here. For instance, one military operator detailed a highly unusual event following his own encounter. He was getting his regular shots, but then he was haphazardly given this totally unexplained injection. He actually described the substance as having a bizarre, almost glowing purple color to it. And get this, he noted his memory of the immediate time frame right after became extremely fuzzy. He wasn't told what it was, and his fellow operators definitely didn't receive it. The panel uses this specific account to point toward a highly covert protocol for handling personnel who get exposed to restricted phenomena.
Expanding on that, the panel alleges a disturbing trend of covert physical monitoring of these witnesses. Aside from those glowing shots we just talked about, operators reported suspicious booster vaccines, like anthrax shots, which they suspect were just a cover for other hidden procedures. But honestly, the most alarming thing the panel discussed was the alleged use of advanced biological tracking chips. According to their sources, these aren't your standard metal RFID chips. No, they are biological implants embedded directly into nerve bundles, and they actually run off the body's own electrical nervous system. Because they aren't metallic, they completely evade standard MRI or CT scans. It implies a total loss of bodily autonomy for these operators without them even knowing it's happening. The whistleblowers also claimed they were taken to underground facilities to test their psychological or what they call psionic reactions to extraterrestrial materials.
Moving on to Section 2, distinguishing the crafts.
So the speakers claim that major defense contractors have actually successfully reverse-engineered, retrieved non-human technology to create near-perfect human-made replicas. But military operators have learned how to spot the differences. Genuine extraterrestrial crafts are described as completely seamless. They look like they're manifested in 3D as a single whole unit without any manufacturing parts or seams, and they operate in absolute silence. On the flip side, the human-made crafts, while incredibly advanced, still showed terrestrial manufacturing marks. They're built in segments, sometimes you can even see rivets. They often have this intensely bright center light that literally burns your eyes to look at, and they emit a very audible, low, transformer-like hum or buzzing sound when they hover nearby.
So, the crucial takeaway here is that the panel actually believes these black-budget programs are deliberately flying human-made crafts over active conventional military exercises. Why? Well, to secretly test their operational reactions. The whistleblowers detailed instances where conventional military operators, who are completely unread on these black projects by the way, were engaged in live-fire training when massive, silent, triangular crafts flew directly overhead. The speakers suggest this is a very deliberate cat-and-mouse game. It allows the shadow programs to test advanced radar evasion, basically seeing if her own top-tier anti-aircraft systems will even register the crafts. It essentially turns the conventional military into unwitting test subjects.
That brings us to Section 3, the covert threat.
The panel issued a stark warning that shadow government factions intend to use these man-made crafts to fake an extraterrestrial threat. This is the literal definition of a false flag operation. By controlling highly advanced reverse-engineered aerospace vehicles that the general public and even top military leaders believe are alien, a rogue faction could stage an attack or some sort of aggressive incursion. The goal? To entirely deceive the globe into believing the threat is extraterrestrial in origin. They actually laid out a step-by-step psychological warfare campaign for how this works. Step 1 is mastering the physics to reverse-engineer the craft in the first place. Step 2, exactly as we just discussed, is flying them over restricted airspace to test our own military's blind spots. Step 3 is a massive gaslighting campaign directed at the media and the public, creating this terrifying narrative of an unknown alien menace. And the final step? Staging that perceived threat to secure basically unlimited global power, forced unity through fear, and trillions in defense funding for a massive, completely unnecessary interstellar defense system. But the panel also points out a much more immediate, real-world danger to this extreme secrecy, and that's accidental global conflict. The speakers stress that keeping conventional commanders completely in the dark creates extreme national security vulnerabilities. They recounted this terrifying historical incident where a 4-star admiral at the Atlantic Command detected an anomalous craft off the coast. Having zero knowledge of these classified programs, the admiral understandably assumed it was a Soviet threat. So, he scrambled jets from 5 different naval air bases, escalating the situation almost to the brink of World War III. When your top commanders don't know what's flying in their own airspace, catastrophic miscalculations aren't just possible, they are incredibly likely.
Section 4. The consciousness connection.
Now we pivot to something a bit more metaphysical. The panel outlined what is known as C5 or CE5 contact. This is a human-initiated protocol that shifts completely away from things like radio waves and radar. Instead, it relies entirely on directed intent, deep meditation, and entering a neutral state of consciousness. The speakers argue that advanced beings communicate through a quantum-entangled consciousness field. Basically, imagine an instant, invisible network linking all minds across space, and they claim anyone, literally anyone, can learn to tap into it. Because these civilizations might be millions of light years away, speed-of-light radio transmissions are just way too slow. They assert that tapping into this innate universal consciousness is the only way instantaneous interstellar communication is actually possible.
To give you an idea of what that feels like, one military operator described a subjective telepathic experience with these beings. Upon locking eyes, he felt as though he was plugged directly into their collective or hive mind. He described the communication not as a linear stream of words, like humans chatting back and forth, but as massive, instantaneous packets of profound knowledge downloaded directly into his awareness with zero resistance. It is an entirely different paradigm of language and understanding.
The panel further claims that the line between mind and machine is heavily blurred at this level of advancement. They introduce the concept of technology-assisted consciousness. This means these extraterrestrial crafts and beings actually use advanced hardware to augment and amplify their innate telepathic abilities. And what's really fascinating is the claim that humanity isn't actually that far behind. The panel noted that human covert programs have been working on this for decades. They cited that an inventor reportedly developed a headset capable of assisting remote viewing and consciousness projection, and that tech was subsequently acquired by a CIA front company as early as 1956. Wild, right?
Section 5. Political action.
So what do we do about all this? To bypass the alleged roadblocks put up by the shadow government, the speakers insist that the current political theater just isn't enough. They are demanding open, entirely transparent congressional hearings. No more closed-door sessions. They argue that investigative committees must be granted full subpoena power by congressional leadership to literally force testimony. Most importantly, they state there are dozens of high-level active aerospace operatives with top-secret SCI clearances who are ready to testify right now, but they require federal witness protection and ironclad immunity to do so. Finally, the panel boldly claimed that certain senior intelligence officials are actively being blackmailed to keep this secret, a practice they are demanding federal law enforcement put an end to immediately.
$2,000 trillion. Let that number sink in for a second. The panel estimates that this staggering amount of macroeconomic assets is directly tied up in these suppressed technologies and the incumbent global oil and energy economy. They argue that the core reason for the 70-year cover-up isn't just about maintaining a military advantage, it is about absolute macroeconomic dominance. Releasing zero-point energy and advanced propulsion tech would render the current fossil fuel paradigm completely obsolete overnight, and that would disrupt the most powerful financial interests on the planet.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with the panel's ultimate, most provocative vision. They argue that if we can navigate this disclosure properly, avoiding the fear-mongering and the false flags, the release of these liberated technologies could literally eradicate global poverty, heal the biosphere, and propel humanity into a peaceful post-scarcity era. Imagine a world where human energy isn't spent just surviving the daily grind, but is instead focused on consciousness, exploration, and becoming a peaceful interstellar civilization. It is a massive paradigm shift. What would that world actually look like? It's something truly profound to think about. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.